Guys, what's good? Welcome back. Sdho 103, the podcast where I don't know what I'm going to do ever. Last time I was going into some 3D object Gen AI program, going into Blender, looking at some digital art stuff to spice it up, because I really do envision whatever I end up doing, it's just whatever I feel called to do, I do. And today we're going to be just talking. Obviously you can see the laptop's not on my lap. I'm not screen recording anything. I'm just talking. And so we'll talk about spirituality, consciousness. It's now the spiritual dimension hangout now. Although really, I'll come on and talk about whatever. The main point I've realized is that there's interest, I feel interested, I feel called to go on and do it. And I know no one would really ever know about these videos unless you were following the channel. And I don't know if anyone is just randomly typing in Sdho 103 unless they know what Sdho is. So I like that it's kind of secretive, it's like pressure off. Because I really don't know what I want to do, but I do feel very blessed and grateful that I even know how to do any of this stuff. Come on video, talk about things, have something to say, and be completely, I don't know if unbiased is the word. What I mean is, I'm not coming on because I have to, right? Like a company isn't paying me, or some institution isn't paying me to promote some sort of message. You know what I mean? I'm just coming on because the cosmos is coming through me and it's making me excited. And it's you should go talk on video. Maybe you have a message that somebody wants to hear. And it doesn't really matter who watches this, if it's a lot of people, if it's only a few people, if, one person even hears something that is inspiring, then that's pretty good. I'd be happy with that. I also do like coming on video, talking about, various things I find interesting. It's also fun to put together a video. You make art when you make videos, you know what I mean? I even bring the digital art skills that I've acquired, doing this, I've brought into my art, but then I've also developed that on the art realm, and then I've also imbued that into the video making. It's I know I'm supposed to be doing something or talking about something in the future, but I don't really know what. I guess my Ableton days are behind me. In fact, it's the first time I've never bought the new Ableton, because I really don't use it. I mostly just make art now, digital art these days. And then, every 2 weeks or so I get on and make a video. But I will say, I think Ableton Live 12 is it's the first Ableton, I would say, is worth upgrading, because it's just so new. The MIDI tools that allows you to make all of these chords and patterns, just generates all of these chords and rhythmic patterns for you. And what's a rhythmic pattern? It's not just drums, it's like a melody, So it's you've got all these tools, and it's it's incredible. It's perfect for somebody who, yeah, it's really great. I would like to get it, but right now in my life, I am just, it's mostly just my spiritual practice, trying to allow this transformation of consciousness to happen, which is happening to all of us, everyone on the planet. You don't have to know anything about any sort of spiritual stuff at all. It's just a process that happens, and it takes us to a good place, but it can be kind of freaky in the process. And speaking of energies and stuff, I'm recording this right after the spring equinox. And that's always a big time of year because it's basically the beginning of the true new year, the energetic new year. What happens every spring equinox? Well, the spring equinox happens at a very precise point in time. Some of you might know that it's the exact marker when there's just as much light as there is darkness on the planet. It's just as much light as dark on the planet. And then every day there forward, there's more light. And the summer solstice is the most amount of light compared to the dark. And then you get to the fall or the autumn equinox, which is 50-50. And then the darkest day, the most darkness, the less light, is the winter solstice. But also, if you guys are into like various, spiritual modalities, astrology, there's a whole spiritual significance. And the spring equinox is a big one. And that specific time happens when the sun moves into 0 degrees of Aries. Now, for those of you who know, right prior to it moving into 0 degrees of Aries, it's at 29 degrees of Pisces. And for those of you that know the astrology, the zodiac wheel starts in Aries, it then goes around, and it concludes in Pisces. And so 0 degrees of Aries is saying that, the sun has gone around the entire zodiac wheel, learning the lessons. It's in Aries, then it goes to Taurus, then Gemini, then Cancer, then Leo, then Virgo, then Libra, then Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and then Aries. So when it clicks over from 29 degrees of Pisces and it moves to 0 of Aries, it starts the zodiac wheel, and it thus starts, a new cycle. One cycle comes to an end. So if you think about it, do you guys remember, March 19th, 20th, 21st, whenever it is? Last year, it's not always on like March 19th, and it's different depending on what time zone you're in. But do you remember what you were doing in March of 2024? Well, you went through, all of us, everything, went through the whole zodiac wheel, and now we're starting again. And, I always try to pay attention, even before I paid attention to the astrology, I would always try to pay attention to what was going on in my life, what I felt was going on in the collective, and how the energy felt through the seasons, through these big points, and the equinoxes, the solstices are very big turning points in life, for the collective, for us. And it's very symbolic, and, there's that saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. I always look forward to the spring equinox every year because it feels like the energy starts flowing. Seems like things start moving forward. Things start springing to life, no pun intended. But for real, that's what happens. And, for me, and I'm sure maybe some of you might feel the same way, but there's a tendency in the winter months that you're kind of going inside, no pun intended. It's colder out. it gets dark very early. You don't really want to be outside. If you are outside, it's because you're walking your pudgy little doggy who's got to go peepees and poopies. And then you're like, oh my God, let's get in. Yeah, just talking about Chonky. He says, hey, you should have been feeding me my kibi, and now you're talking about astrology, and that's not good for the puggy. That's not good for Tonku. Here, play with your little goofy dog or something. He's like, I'm too old and mature for that crazy barky doggy. Anyways, so, it can feel like not much is happening in the winter. It feels like you're in more of an introspective place. Sure, it feels that way when you're outside. And sometimes there can be this feeling of what am I doing with my life? Where is it going? Where are these good ideas and things that I'm supposed to have? And it feels like when the spring equinox, the Aries equinox. Oh, now you dropped your little bony, Chunky. That's not goody. And when this is happening, it can feel like things are now starting to move forward. And then they start gaining steam. Maybe you have a better sense of what's happening in your life, maybe where it's going, and things start to pick up. And what happens outside? You start seeing little greenery on the ground is poking through the grass. It's new life that is springing forward. My favorite flower blooms, and it blooms first. It's the daffodil. I really like daffodils. And then after daffodils, then tulips happen. And but then also there's little buds on the trees. I was looking at the tree, actually just right outside there. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's got these little green little bubbly seed thing on there. And then another tree's got these red ones, and you're just wow, I'm seeing life. Even the grass is starting to look greener. And it's interesting, you're it's all coming back, it's coming to life. But see, not it's just coming back, coming to life, but, what happens after the spring equinox as we head towards the summer solstice? Now, also keep in mind, from a spiritual, energetic standpoint, each time there is one of these, so right now it's the spring equinox, then it's the summer solstice, then it's the autumn equinox, then it's the winter solstice. It basically is I heard someone describe it like this, my favorite astrologer, and she was it's you're banging a gong, which sets the tone for the next 3 months, so we're striking the tone. Think of a real nice gong or a singing bowl, and it strikes a new tone, a new note that then reverberates on for 3 months. And so it's things start to pick up, move forward, gain steam as we move to the summer solstice. And the summer solstice is the most light on the planet, the least amount of dark. It's you're in your fullest outwardly expansion. And it's if you think of the light, the light coming in from the sun, it's very doing energy. It's very masculine energy, doing, going forth into the world, carrying a new project forward, And then as we then start heading towards the autumn equinox, which you think autumn, you think of fall, you think of the harvest season, then it's okay, what you began in the spring equinox, you were working on through the summer solstice, and now you're in late September, And you're at the fall equinox, which always happens when the sun moves into 0 degrees of Libra. And then in the summer solstice, that happens when the sun moves into 0 degrees of Cancer. And then the winter solstice, 0 degrees of Capricorn. So like, what was the harvest in fall? And it doesn't mean that right at like the autumn equinox, you're like, yay, the project or the job I was working on concluded. Like, it just, it can mean many things. It could be like how you now view the world. It could be so many different things. And if you just start paying attention, I've been paying attention for like many years, I find it really resonates big time with me and what I'm going through. So now I hear you saying, well, what about when we get to the winter solstice? Which is my second favorite one behind the... my favorite is spring equinox, then it's winter solstice, then it's summer solstice, and the number 4 in 4th place, autumn equinox. But we're talking about the winter solstice now. The winter solstice is the harvest happened, and now we're like, it's the most dark. So think of, now we're like returning into the womb of gestation, this like gestation period. We're in the dark. We're like a seed submerged in the earth. We're in like the cosmic womb. We don't really know what we're doing. Maybe we're trying to figure it out. We're like clawing around and nothing's happening, nothing's moving. And you're like, what am I, dying? Think about outside, in the fall, the leaves fall off the tree. And then in the winter, especially the depths of winter. Yeah, Chonky, the depths of winter where it's so cold that you can't even walk in the snow, and you lift your paws up in the air because you get frost paw, and then I have to pick you up, Chonky. Why are your paws so sensitive, Chonky? That's not good for Chonku. And then you're clawing at the seed. You're in a seed, or maybe it's an egg. Same thing, right? And you're clawing at it. You're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not interested in anything. Nothing makes sense. I just want to feel excited all the time. And then you go, you're like, there's no point. I shouldn't be thrashing and crashing around. I'm just gonna surrender. Now you're completely in the void space. And you want to resist every temptation to want to break out of it. And then something happens. You then start expanding. You start getting ideas. You start getting creative ideas and impulses, visions. Where is this all coming from? I thought I was dead a second ago. I've been feeling like a lot of dead energy. I don't know about you guys, but there is no dead or death. There's just like rebirth, and it's like a continuous cycle, but whatever, we'll get back to that. And then it starts to take fold, and then you then get to the spring equinox. So happy spring equinox. There's some other things happening around this spring equinox, and they truly are happening around the spring equinox. Eclipses. So we have eclipse season, if you've heard it talked about like that. And eclipse season happens twice a year, 6 months apart, and on March 13th, it was like at like the middle of the night. No, actually, it was like 1 a.m. or so. So like, I guess probably for most people it was March 14th. See, whenever he comes close, I try to like block, like, because like his nose will like shoot liquid, and like I don't want to get it on the computer screen. But now, like, don't really have a chance. I didn't plan this. This is so funny. So, on March 14th, eclipse season began, and we had the full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo. Now, a lunar eclipse, now, before I get into that, then 2 weeks later, you have the next eclipse, which is a solar eclipse, and a solar eclipse happens on a new moon, always. And these always happen in a sign. So for this one, it's Aries. So, this first eclipse, this full moon, total lunar eclipse happening in Virgo, because it's a lunar eclipse, that means it's a full moon. And full moons are always symbolic of endings. New moons are beginnings. Full moons, endings. So a lunar eclipse, which always happens on a full moon, that's an even bigger ending. So if you think about what was happening on and around March 14th for you, maybe there was some sort of an ending. And then if you really want to get deep into astrology, and I am an astrologer now, so if you're looking for an astrologer, I could definitely do astrology readings for you. But you would, if you really wanted to maybe have an idea of like what it could specifically mean for you, in astrology, there's something called houses. So if you have a birth chart, you know, if you've done a birth chart or what's called a natal chart, there'll be houses. Not all of them do this. The majority should, right? But I've run astrology charts, and I'm like, wow, they don't have the houses on there. But so like for instance, Virgo is my 10th house, and the 10th house is, so this lunar eclipse is happening in my 10th house. And the 10th house is ruled by the 10th sign in the zodiac, which is Capricorn. And so this 10th house is about your career. And I was like, okay, that's kind of... Sorry, I was like hearing like a weird sound in the headphones, and I was like, what is that? I don't know, my hearing, I used to be afraid that my hearing was going bad, even though I had no evidence for it, just purely anxiety. I actually think my hearing is too good. Like, I'm so sensitive to sounds that it like drives me nuts. Like I know all the sounds of all the cars that are loud in the neighborhood. Oh, there's that asshole turning on his car to warm it up, and then there's that asshole driving down the street with this loud, annoying car. Like, I know and then all the sounds in the house and the different dogs that bark. Like, I'm losing it, folks. No, I'm just. But anyways, where was I going before that? I got distracted. There was this like sound. See, like I'd pick up on those things. I mean, can you blame me? I mean, like I do the Ableton stuff. Of course, I'm gonna like be very perceptive to sounds. By the way, are you enjoying yourself hanging out? Is this better than the last SDHO? Do you wish I was doing Ableton? That's something I realized. It's so funny. I like watched the last SDHO, and maybe it was because I had like quite a few beverages, but I was like watching it and I was like so bored. And I was like, either this is really boring, like I'm not getting to the point, I'm like, or I'm just a little bit intoxicated right now, or probably a lot intoxicated. And I'm like being overly critical on myself, but I don't know. It was really interesting because I was like, I think I'm like done making videos. Like I was kind of like kidding when I said it, because like, you know, every so often there is an itch to like go on. Even before I started making these videos, like every so often, like even if it was like every like 4 months, 6 months, I would just have an idea or an impulse to get on and make a video and put it out, and like with completely no expectation that anyone would even see it. Almost like I'm just giving a gift to society. Like when I chose to make that video about Ableton Tree Tone, which was like that weird, interesting device that came with like, I think Ableton Live 10, I want to say. I think it was 10, maybe 11, I don't know. And like, I just like felt like I wanted to do it. And then that was like the first video, I think, that like got views. You know? Anyways. Where was I going? So yeah, so Virgo is my 10th house. So because this full moon, this total lunar eclipse is in Virgo, it's in my 10th house, which is career. So that would mean an ending to like my ending, but like with an ending, there's a beginning. So like what's coming to end? And I was like, career. I'm like, I really don't have like a career, thank God. I'm like, but you know, with everything, it's not just so strict like career. You know, it can be like, you know, like what are you doing with your time? You know what I mean? Like what are you focusing your time towards? And like for me, like I'm constantly on X, like with everything going on in like crypto and like financial markets and stuff like that, and then what's going on in the world and politics and geopolitics, because that stuff affects like financial markets and crypto. And but then I also put I've been putting out SDHO 1, I think came out like middle to late March of 2022. I mean, that's 3 years, you know? I mean, I used to put one out every like 4 or 5 days. Now it's like every, I don't know, 2 weeks. But like, you could say that's part of it as well. And what I noticed, and again, you don't necessarily feel it right when it happens, although it was really cool because it was like 1:30 in the morning and I was walking my dog, and because it was a total eclipse and it shined over the North America, we were walking and looking up and seeing the actual eclipse, like watching the moon, you know, turn orange and see the that eclipsey shadow and stuff. It was pretty nice, but it felt interesting to me. You know, even though I'm so into all of these things, you know, there's a lot of people that are all about like, oh, I could feel Mars retrograde, and I could feel, you know, when Pluto shifted into Aquarius from Capricorn. And you know, I'm not discounting that. Like, I'm not that in tune with like energetics, you know, but like it's felt kind of different for me since the eclipse, and it's kind of felt like that, like a chapter closed. Like I noticed I was less interested, you know, flipping through my phone on Twitter, looking at all the crypto stuff and looking at, you know, the AI stuff, the tech stuff, the politics stuff, the what's going on in the world stuff. Like, it's almost like it just lost some of its like interest, you know, like, what am I doing? Like, what these videos I'm making, is there even any point? Like, and so it's almost like I could kind of feel that, like, it seems like certain things that would grab my attention just didn't have the same pull. I mean, what is that? That's an ending. But an ending should always be prefaced with like, okay, well, there's gonna be a beginning. So what is that beginning? And, you know, if you told me I was gonna be on video today, you know, talking and recording, I would have been like, yeah, right. But like, it was one of those days where I just felt dead, you know, like nothing's happening, nothing's going on. I'm not excited about anything. I don't, you know, and then all of a sudden I was like, I kind of want to just get on video and like talk about spiritual stuff, you know, like energetic, spiritual stuff. And, I was like, but I don't then my like thinking mind started engaging, and it was like, okay, well, you need to plan, and what topics. Oh, you're going to talk about astrology, and then you're going to do this. And immediately I felt like, ugh. Like, ugh. You know? Almost as if like it has to be free flowing. It has to be off the cuff. I have to just allow the energy to like come through me in and out. And I feel it's very symbolic of the state of consciousness that we're moving into, you know, moving into group consciousness, also called unity consciousness, 5D consciousness. It's a good consciousness to be in. Chunky, I know you're a doggy, so you probably wouldn't know, but we're not finished yet. And I know you want your kibi, but it's not time yet, Chunky. Wait till the video's over, then we'll do the kibi. Good boy, Chunky. He's good. Sorry, I had to take a break. It's not very easy to just, like, talk nonstop. I could do it. It takes a lot of energy. And I'm telling you, I don't think I can. I learned like how to use OBS, which is like probably the thing you use the most. Most people use to like stream, but I'm like, I don't want to live stream. That's like too much pressure, you know. If I was like, earning the big bucks doing like streaming, I'd be like, sure, I'll stream every day and collect that cash. But yeah, I don't know about that yet. I need to know what the hell I want to talk about, and that's kind of why I'm on right now, is because it just rang through, and it was just like, go talk about spiritual stuff. You don't even have to worry about it. Maybe we'll talk about the astrology, which is really crazy right now. This is probably this is the strongest astrology for the entire year of 2025. Very strong. And it was really great too, because like something came through my awareness, and it was like, you don't even have to know what it is you're going to talk about. Like, it's just going to like come out, and you don't even have to worry. Kind of like people who are channelers, like the message just comes through and they just like record it. They don't have to think about it. And that's very like indicative of where we're going in terms of the consciousness that people on the planet will soon be experiencing, which you can experience it now, which is that whole 5D consciousness, unity consciousness, group consciousness. Chonky, are you trying to interrupt the SDHO by making that goofy doggy toy bark? Chonky, I know you're hungry, but don't interrupt the SDHO, Chunky. Wow, he's real. Anyways, where's I going? He's like whipping it around like crazy. Oh my god. Oh boy. Oh boy. He just whipped it around, and then it shot out of his mouth and like flew across the room. And he's like staring at me like, Chunky's getting crazy. Chunky's going crazy. Okay, I think we need to. So anyways, so on the 28th, so we had on the March 14th, we had the full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo. And then on the 20th, 19th, 20th, depending on where you are in the world, it was the spring equinox. And then remember I said 2 weeks later, because they come in pairs, we then have on March 28th, we have the new moon solar eclipse. And a solar eclipse, it's always a new moon. and that's in Aries. And that symbolizes more of a new beginning. Just like we have a new moon every month, a full moon every month. The full moon is an ending, the new moon is a beginning. So you look to see where Aries falls in your chart. I believe it's like 7 degrees of Aries. And that would be where there might be a new beginning. And so Aries, which is on the opposite end, so it's not my 10th house, but Aries is like my 5th house. So 5th house is like, and man, there's certain houses that like I just don't quite understand that much. Because like if you were to ask someone who's like an astrologer and you're like, tell me about the 10th house, one of the things you'll hear a lot is like creativity. So I think about the 5th house in terms of creativity. But then also you'll hear like family, pleasure, children. And I'm like, how the hell does like children, family, pleasure, creative, like, you know what I mean? It just doesn't seem like those all line up. But like when I think about, in the 5th house is ruled by the 5th zodiac sign, which is Leo. And Leo's very creative energy, but so is Pisces. Pisces is a very creative energy too. So when I think about 5th house, I really do think about like creativity. So I'm like, oh, a new thing in creativity for me is opening up. And I'm like, well, I mean, my whole life is about creativity. In fact, if I don't feel creative, like I basically feel like I'm dead or dying. And then I try to escape it. And I escape it by doing whatever I need to do to feel some creativity. I don't know if you're that same way or not. But so I'm like, okay, something new is starting there. And you feel these from like 6 months, because in another 6 months we're going to have the next eclipse season. And so that's big. That's on March 28th. So it's a big time month. And what else happened in March in astrology? Well, Venus went retrograde. Now, Venus only goes retrograde once every year and a half. So that's a big one. And because it doesn't happen very often. And also Mars ended its retrograde finally, even though we feel the effects of it. Mars is the retrograde we have the least. It only happens once every 2 years. So Mars is the planet that goes retrograde the least, every 2 years or so. And then Venus is the one that happens the second to least amount, every year and a half. So you have Mars retrograde just ending, and then Venus retrograde started at the beginning of the month. And then Mercury, which goes retrograde about 3 to 4 times a year, that also went retrograde just a little bit after Venus. So you have that happening, which is pretty big. And then you might say, well, arguably, there's still one last big thing to happen in March from an astrology point of view, and it happens on March 30th. So 2 days after this solar eclipse, new moon, which you don't even need to say new moon because you would just already know that. So after the solar eclipse, and okay, spring equinox, big deal. Having the eclipses also happening in the same month, very big deal. Eclipses, big deal. Having the equinox fall in between the eclipses, big deal. And by the way, the eclipses, they don't always happen in March. They relate to the nodal axis of the moon. So like right now, the nodes are in Pisces. They're in the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo, and that's where the nodes of the moon stay. You'll even see like on a birth chart, it's like the north node. They don't normally include the south node. It's always like opposite, completely opposing it, 180 degrees. But like it moves backwards. The nodes always move in a retrograde motion. They do that every year and a half, they move and they keep moving backwards. So like next year, instead of it being in March, it'll be probably like, late February, early March, or in February. So like it always moves back. So the fact that like this equinox is happening between those eclipses is even like more interesting and crazy. But yet, I would say that this thing is the thing I'm really keyed in on, and it happens on March 30th, and that's that Neptune moves into Aries. That's big. You want to know why? Because Neptune has been in Pisces for a long time. Remember we said, so by the way, all these planets, they move around the zodiac wheel. So they move from Aries all the way around to Pisces, and they move all the way through the signs. Now, they will move backwards, retrograde, although they're not technically moving backwards. It just appears that way. But when it does move retrograde, it does move backwards in the zodiac wheel before then stationing direct and then resuming forward again. But Neptune has a very long orbit. So the fact that Neptune is about to cross into 0 degrees of Aries on March 30th, that means it's gone around the entire zodiac wheel and it's now entering 0 degrees of Aries. Do you want to know the last time Mars entered 0 degrees of Aries? Was 1861, which, believe it or not, was when the Civil War started. So the last time Aries was at this point, we were having the Civil War in the United States of America. So Neptune has a 160-degree orbit around the zodiac. It spends 14 years in each zodiac sign. So since 2011, Neptune has been in Pisces. Neptune actually rules Pisces. Every planet has a zodiac sign that it rules. So the energy of Pisces is the energy of Neptune. They're the same. And so now it's moving into Aries. And Aries and Pisces energy is very, very different. Aries is very moving forward, taking initiative energy. And so that's very, very big. Pluto, as I'm sure you probably know, is even further out from the sun than Neptune, and it has a 248-year orbit, or 240. It's like a 240-year orbit. Neptune is, as I mentioned, it's 160 or 165. And then Uranus, which is also changing signs this year, which Uranus changes signs every 6 years or so. So it goes Pluto is So Pluto is the farthest out. And the crazy thing is that Pluto was in Capricorn since 2008. And it finally shifted out of Capricorn for good. Because remember I said, they'll have the retrograde where it'll kind of dance back and forth for a little bit. But at November 20th of last year, it finally officially moved out of Capricorn and into the next sign of the zodiac, Aquarius. And it's now going to be in Aquarius till 2040. As I said, Neptune has it stays in each sign for about 14 years. But Pluto's weird because it has more of an elliptical orbit, so it will stay longer in certain signs than others. But it usually stays anywhere from, I think, 16 to 20 years or so, depending. So that was a major shift. Neptune, which stays in each sign for about 14 years, shifting. But it stays in Aries until October, and then it retrogrades. It then goes back to the last degree of Pisces for 2 months, and then it stations direct. And then when it moves out of 29 of Pisces, it never enters back. It then is now permanently in Aries. And it's big. And then Uranus, which is, Uranus is in Taurus right now. Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. So yeah, it's like a 6 or 7 year orbit. It moves into Gemini in July. So like you have the outermost planets, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, all changing signs. And then the next one, Saturn. Saturn does 3 years in each sign. It's also in Pisces, and it moves into 0 degrees of Aries in May, and then it retrogrades back. And then, and this is really interesting, February of next year, 2026, both Saturn and Neptune both cross 0 degrees of Aries together and remain in Aries. So then Neptune will be in Aries for the next 14 years. Saturn will be in it for 3 years. So like, yeah, Saturn goes through the whole zodiac in like 29 years, stays in each sign for 3 years. And so many of these planets change signs. Jupiter moves from Gemini into Cancer in like June, but Jupiter changes. Jupiter goes through the whole zodiac, it goes through the whole zodiac in like 12 years. So it spends like a year in every sign. It changes like every year, either in June or July. And then Mars, I don't know. Basically Mars, I don't know how long it takes to go through the whole zodiac, but like Mars typically stays in each zodiac sign for about like a month and a half. And as it spends a month and a half in each sign, so like just times that by 12, what is it, like a year and a half or something? But then every 2 years it does like it's retrograde, and then so it slows down and it like drills into a certain chart. So like I think Mars went retrograde in like November, but as it approaches retrograde, it goes really slow. Then it stations retrograde and it's like paused there, and then it moves back, and then as it gets ready to station direct, like kind of hovers and stays. But like when it's moving forward, Mars spends, about a month and a half, 6 weeks in each sign. And then you get to Venus. Venus is about like a month in each sign, and then it retrogrades, as I mentioned, like about once every year and a half. And then Mercury, it moves really quick, but it retrogrades like 3 to 4 times a year. The Moon, it basically spends really 3 days in each sign, and it just kind of flies around. And then the Sun, 365 days in a year. There's 360 degrees in the zodiac. It moves about 1 degree a day, and it just always moves forward. And so, yeah. So, like, I knew I had a feeling I wanted to talk about astrology and stuff, but, like, if I knew, like, oh, you need to, like, get on video and, like, talk about astrology, I would have been like, ugh, And you're like, well, what are you talking about? You like talking about astrology. You like this. No, I don't like having a plan and having to do things. Like, I have to, like, I think it's very, like, emblematic of, like, this, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but it's, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes words pop out of my mouth. I'm like, I don't even know if it's the right word, and then I look it up, and it's like, oh, no, that works. But I feel like it's, like, very indicative of, like, this new consciousness, which is, like, things just sort of happen, and, like, life just kind of, like, goes through you, and, like, it's a very, like, spontaneous, in the flow kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, I feel like talking. And even though I knew it would probably, get into like astrology and stuff, like if I knew I had to talk about astrology, I would just be like, I just wouldn't want to do it. But like the fact that I was like, I just want to sit down and talk, and I know I want, it's spiritual stuff, energetic consciousness type stuff, letting it just like come through. And it's tough because like we're trying to move between living in the mind and living in the heart. And we're so conditioned to live in the mind that it's like, it's very hard to try to like figure out, how to do this, because it's like very different than, how we've been programmed to be. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I had to get the little doggy some food. He'll probably do some crazy stuff. He likes to hump his bed after he eats food. So where was I going with that? Probably gonna tune this out soon. Bring it to a head, but so yeah, I think that's really like the big thing is humanity is changing, and I think that's a big change that's happening right now for humanity's consciousness. Is I think we're really knocking on the door of this transition from separation consciousness to unity consciousness, from individual consciousness to group consciousness. It's transitioning from like mind consciousness to like heart consciousness. And it's entirely possible to just live from your heart. Now, living from your heart isn't like walking outside and hugging everyone you see and hugging every dog you see. It's like being completely in the now, in the present moment. It's like out of your head, It's not thinking about what to do. It's like you're in the now, you're in the present moment. There's no thinking, there's just sensing, feeling. And it's hard to get to that place. You could say that like when you meditate, that's kind of what you're doing, is getting out of head consciousness and into your heart consciousness. You're getting out of thoughts and into presence, into the present moment, which gives you presence. And it's not very hard. It's very hard to do because there's a lot of like resistance. I mean, anyone who's done any meditating can tell you all the kinds of resistance you feel when you try to sit there and try to just breathe and not think thoughts. You get a lot of thoughts and you get a lot of resistance. It's crazy because, as I've been sitting around today, just feeling dead, like no energy, no excitement, no visions in my head, not interested in anything, just going from like YouTube video to YouTube video, then opening up my phone and looking at crypto charts and stock charts and then scrolling through X. I'm just like, I just don't care. I don't even know what I'm doing. And like, I know that like there's ebbs and flows, and I know eventually like my creativity, my excitement will be turned on, and that will be great. But at one point I was like, the weird thing is that I know the only thing that really matters right now, and truly only matters all the time, is being able to be present, be in your presence, be in the present moment, be in the now, be in the now moment. And I'm like, the most enlightened thing I can do is literally sit here alone with nothing going on, turn off the TV, and just be. And that's actually like the default consciousness, the observer. And it just seems so hard to do. And I was like, I'm fighting this feeling of basically being in the void, of being in this cocoon, of being in this like winter solstice expression of like in the ground. You're like inside of a seed, you're inside of an egg, you're inside of a womb, the cosmic womb, the womb of creation. Nothing's happening. There's no excitement. There's no depression. There's no anything. It's like a blank slate, but nothing's there. And if you stay in that state long enough and don't try to escape it, eventually the lights turn on. And now suddenly you're like born, you're like reborn. And I think like so much of us try to get out of that place. And it was just pretty crazy because it's like I knew I had to be there. I knew that it was like okay. And I knew that something was going to come out of it. So, eventually I took, I think I like ordered some Mexican food for pickup. And so I was like just driving in the car to go pick it up. And then I was like, oh, we're going to go do an SDHO and we're going to talk about spirituality. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about. It doesn't even matter. Maybe astrology, maybe not. Doesn't even matter. Just going to do it. You don't even have to worry about it. It's just going to happen. It's going to come out. And I liked that. I thought that was like, I was like, oh my God, yes, that sounds really good. And, it would be such a relief to know that you didn't have to use your mind. You didn't have to use your mind to like figure it out, to plan it. People say, are you sure? You might want to do a lot of thinking about that. You might want to gather all the X's and O's together and figure out, what to do, what it means. It's like, or you can like live from the heart and just like be and do and know that like the highest outcome is coming to you, and I'm trying to figure that out. I know it's hard to do in this world because we're like completely wired to like be in the head and to live that way. And when you're like freaking out about things, it makes you go even more into your head. So just think about some of those things. Happy equinox, happy strongest, craziest endings, beginnings point. Things are going to be moving forward. Aries energy is very like confident. I know who I am, moving forward. Aries is the ram that is like charging forward. Even if it charges into a brick wall, it's just going. You know what I mean? Like when you feel kind of like, oh my God, where the hell am I? What am I even doing here? I don't know what's going. This is, like it's good to have more of that like confidence, more of that like moving forward energy. We're emerging into whatever it is we're supposed to be emerging. If you are into astrology stuff, if you want to learn more about it, if you want me to look at your birth chart, you can reach out and you can be my first client. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I'll be honest. This probably isn't the best businessman technique, but I'll give a first free session for free. So, yeah. But I hope you guys are doing good. I don't know what these videos are going to be like. I kind of like that I can just come on and make a video and there's no pressure. SDHO 103. No one knows what the hell I'm going to talk about. Someone might love this video, hate the last one. Maybe I do an Ableton thing next. Someone's happy, someone's pissed because they want me to talk more about spiritual stuff. I'm just trying to like live that way of what we were just talking about living in the flow, living in the unity consciousness, where we're going as a humanity and as a society. He's humping this really big bed. He's like lifting it up and twisting it around, biting it and humping it. He likes to do that after he eats his food. But anyways, trying to live that way, to get used to it, because we're all going to be living there. And it's going to be really good because when you're living in that way, you really are living in the flow. You're living in the present moment. You're not in your head. What would it be like to live without thoughts? There aren't thoughts there. It's a really beautiful place, but it's so different. And, I feel like maybe I'm supposed to be talking about this stuff. I really don't know. You know, like, what's a podcast? You know, like, especially like somebody who is just talking, they're just going to talk about whatever they need to talk about. Maybe they'll title it something clever or whatever. But like, I feel like for me, I feel like if I feel like talking and I'm inspired to do so, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go on. And, you know, maybe I'll title it something. Maybe I'll create a different channel for it. But right now, I'm just happy and grateful that I can just come on and do what I want. And then now I can create this video production, make art with it, have fun, and know that even if only 10 people see it, you know, maybe a few of them out of the 10 might maybe pick up something good. So hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're doing good. Thanks for sticking with me. I think Sdho 1 came out 3 years ago. It was either mid or late March. And I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about next time. It's probably going to be something spiritual, energetic, futuristic. Maybe we'll do Ableton. I don't even know. You know, maybe not. Maybe we'll do some digital art stuff. Maybe not. But glad you guys are here sticking around with me. I think I've got like 10 people who watch all these videos when they come out. I don't know who you are. The Magnificent 10. Just want to say thanks for tuning in. And even if none of you watched, I would still do it because this has brought a lot of good into my life. It's fun doing this. This is a unique experience. I've gotten better at my artwork through making these videos. You know, I'm supposed to be doing something talking to humanity. I don't know what the hell it is. So it's almost like I'm just getting practice. I'm just testing the waters. I'm very slow to react. You know, I'm very slow to like do new things. I have to like dip my toe into the water. If we're at like a pool party, you know, I was like the person at the pool party. It would take me so long to get into the damn water, you know, and then someone would push me in and then I'd be like in the water and then now you're in the water. Now it's easy, you know, almost like I need a little shove. Like I'm like a little timid and sometimes in those areas, which is probably my moon in Taurus. I have a Taurus moon. So anyways, guys, take it easy. Hope you're doing well, and I will see you again soon.